This story was about a Christian school, and the teacher, Mrs. Smith, had an assignment for her kids. And the assignment during Easter week was to take some Easter eggs. She had some eggs for them. And she sent one home with each of the kids. And she said, your assignment is to come back tomorrow with something in each of these eggs that speaks to you or is a sign of new life. I have to tell you that this teacher was concerned because one of her kids, Jeremy, this is like a second grade class, and one of the kids, Jeremy, she wasn't sure what kind of things he was capable of, and she was just wondering what he was going to come up with because he always seemed to have some kind of a problem with whatever she was doing. And so the next day comes about, and all the kids turn in their eggs, and she's picking them up one at a time, and she's looking at it, and she pops over and she says, oh, Sally, oh, there was a little butterfly in there, a little plastic butterfly. Oh, that was great. Butterflies, you know, resurrection, oh, that's great. And then the next one picked up, and look in there, oh, there's a little flower, springtime. That speaks about new life. Yeah, that does too. And then she got another one, she popped it open, and oh, it was empty, and she just kind of went on. She kind of figured it was Jeremy, but she didn't want to embarrass him, so she just moved right on. And all of a sudden a hand shot up, Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Smith, why didn't you talk about mine? Well, Jeremy, your egg was empty. And he said, yeah, just like Jesus' tomb. So we clergy sometimes overcomplicate things a lot. I think we do it maybe for job protection, something like that. If we figure what we're saying is really confusing to you, we've had to study a long time to get this confused. You know, it protects our position. But in reality, it doesn't have to be that difficult all the time. Now, the empty tomb is what the women in today's gospel saw. If you were here last Sunday when Father Eric Law preached, and he reminded us that any time we hear women addressed, particularly in the Scripture, addressed as individuals, it's a very important thing, and we should pay attention because most of the time women just go under the radar in most of the Scripture. But in this passage, we not only have one woman who's named, we have three women that are named. We have Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James. We have Mary, and Joanna. We have three different Marys. And then the other one. And all of these women had done the right thing. They were concerned because they had had to do kind of like a quickie job of preparing Jesus for his burial because of the Sabbath on Friday. And so they were coming back after the Sabbath to prepare his body carefully. They were attending to him lovingly. And they came, and can you imagine what they thought when they got to the tomb and they looked in and it was empty? Now, Jeremy, he said, yeah, empty tomb. He got it. We get it. We've had 2,000 years of hearing about it. Can you imagine what it's like for the first people who show up in that tomb on Easter morning? They don't even know it's Easter yet. They haven't seen the credits yet. It's Easter. They haven't seen that. So they get to the tomb and they find it empty. The best thing I can think of is they're confused. And it says they were perplexed about this. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, two men in dazzling clothes appear next to them. You'd think it was the white party. Two men in dazzling clothes appear next to them. And the men say, why are you looking for the living among the dead? Don't you remember what he said? And the two dazzling men tell them that Jesus told them how he was going to be handed over, how he was going to be crucified, and 3 days later would rise. And then the women remembered. Then they remembered, and they went from being perplexed to being scared to being excited, and they ran back to tell Peter and the rest of the men. And you know what happened then, right? They got back, and the men did like, I'm going to speak as a man who's been married for some 30 years, and if you've ever been around me when somebody decides that we need to ask for directions, need to ask for directions. It's just around here. I know this. I did this. Oh, no, wait. I've got my GPS. I don't need to ask directions. And about 3 more trips around the block, and then I finally submit and ask directions, right? So the men back home, they heard this, and it says in the scripture, to them it appeared to be an idle tale. And so they just dismissed all the experience of the women at the tomb, right? Except Peter kind of snuck on over to check it out for himself. Even though he dismissed it, he went to check, and then he was amazed. Now, I have to tell you, we're still at the empty tomb. And I'm trying to sort out what the message, what the good news of the empty tomb is. And I was reading this last week on a blog called Weekly Seeds. It's the writer is a woman named Kate Huey. She's a United Church of Christ pastor. And she was referring to Alice Walker's book, The Color Purple. And back when it was written, it was a Pulitzer Prize-winning novel. It was also very controversial. It's in the top 100 of most banned books. So I just want you to know what I'm getting into here. And there is a scene in there where there's 2 women, Celie and Nettie, and they're sisters. And Celie is married to an abusive man, and Nettie moves in with him, and that abusive man runs her off, and he tells Celie, you are never going to see her again. I don't ever want you to talk to her again. And she doesn't. In fact, so much time goes by that she's not heard from her sister that she fears that her sister is dead. Well, it turns out her sister got hooked up with some pastor and some missionaries. She'd been to Africa, and she'd been on all these exciting journeys, and she had been religiously writing to her sister. But the husband, in more of the abuse, was hiding the letters and wouldn't let her see any of them. And so at some point, she comes upon the letters, and she begins to read through them. She begins to read through them. And she gets to this last letter. And in this last letter, Nettie writes and says, Celie, if you happen to read this, I want you to know that I love you and I'm not dead. This has been a rough year for lots of people. We have members of the church here who have lost family members during this last year. We have folks who've lost their homes, who've lost jobs. We have all sorts of things that might lead one to believe that they're not loved, that they've been left out, left behind. You don't even have to go very far to figure out that. What if we took that empty tomb as a letter from Jesus? What if we took this altar and the beautiful flowers and the music that are offered to God today as a letter? What if we took the Holy Communion that we're about to receive, the body and blood of Christ, as a letter from Jesus? And that letter says, I love you. I'm not